Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Talking Sports with Evan. It's a special edition because joined by a friend of show, Tristian Thomas, and great to have you back to talk about the wild wackiness of sports in general right now, both with Green Bay, Milwaukee, and really everything all around. So appreciate you jumping on to talk with me a little bit and chop it up about the NBA trade deadline and more.
Well, of course, thanks for having me on. It's always good to chop it up with you. And man, it's just been a lot of nonsense. So I'm glad we could take a little bit of time to bring some common sense to all the nonsensical. So it's good to be
Yeah,
here.
definitely. Well, you can find this show live every week on X, Facebook, and YouTube. Facebook and YouTube, just look up Talking Sports with Evan. It's at the top of the screen above my head and over Tristan's forehead right now, and then on X at Evan with Sports. And you can also just scan the QR code in the corner and you go straight to Spotify and you can follow the audio version of the show. And for you, how can viewers, listeners find your platforms?
A Toss Tristan on Sports Show is everywhere, every single platform, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It's everywhere. We also started a brand new edition called the Toss Suite, where we get away from Wisconsin sports and we speak about everything else that's crazy in every single league. So we got that going for us well as everywhere. And of course, tossnationmedia.com.
Yeah, again, appreciate you coming on. And there's a lot of different ways we can start. And I think the big elephant in the room is all the Giannis conversation. And kind of want to get your thoughts there. He had a sit down exclusive with Jimmo from the. I just say Jimmo because I don't want to try to pronounce his last name. With the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Bucks beat writer, and then he had a phone conversation with Eric Name of the Athletic, and his big his theme was he wants to be in Milwaukee forever. Do you think that was more him kind of telling the front office that he wants to be here, or is that just him kind of preparing the Bucks fans in the city for eventually what's going to happen, and that's him being moved on, and that's him trying to, I guess, save face would be the best way to put it.
This is the thing that's so maddening when anybody who is outside of Bucks lore and doesn't really understand the dichotomy of the team or the dichotomy of Giannis himself. When has he ever lied?
Yeah,
Like when has he ever lied? Like he's honest to a fault sometimes.
too much.
He has he yeah, I mean he's never really given you a reason to think otherwise about anything he's ever said. He's been forthright and honest 100%. So I have no reason to believe it's all, he's preparing himself and he's trying to save face and he's preparing Milwaukee for his eventual departure, even though he's never asked for a departure. So I don't believe it's a goodbye. I don't believe it's a trying to prepare himself mentally or anything else, or prepare the Milwaukee fans mentally or anything else. I feel he believes in his heart, truly, the way he feels, he wants to be a Milwaukee Buck for the rest of his career. Milwaukee has been a special place in his heart. They've won together. It's really difficult to see the forest amongst the trees. So when you're in the midst of a losing season, you don't see how you're going to get out of it and compete. And that's kind of what they're going through right now. And it's really the first time Giannis has gone through this sort of adversity being Giannis. Now we know Jason Kidd, they had a terrible season one time. He's been a part of a 15-win season. We get that. But after winning a championship, after winning MVPs, this is really the first good amount of adversity with losing that he's ever had to face, and he's ever had to lead a team being Giannis, the superstar Giannis, to try to get through it. So it's a lot of different emotions going through, but he has never given anybody any reason to think otherwise. He's never lied about any of his feelings. I don't believe he's doing so here either.
We hear all the time from Giannis, from pretty much everybody, he is not the man of the trade. But you watch the national writers, and they're basically always repeating the same thing over and over that he there's conversations happening that he wants to be out. We heard that the New York Knicks were his desired destination during the offseason. Now he doesn't want to go to Golden State. Like, where is this information likely coming from, in your opinion?
People's imagination. I mean, if everybody's like, oh well, the Bucks are listening more so than they ever have. No, the Milwaukee Bucks have always listened to any team that have called about Giannis's availability and what they were willing to put on the table for it. It has been business as usual. The fact remains that now you're going through losing, and we know winning is the great deodorant. This stuff was happening all the time when they were winning. You didn't hear it blown up about it. You didn't hear it blown up. Now that they're losing, now that he is, kind of itching because he wants to get back to beating for championships, and everybody's pouncing on it because they don't see how Milwaukee can rebuild, get back to championship contention. So it's the perfect storm of losing, an extension being due coming up here, and all the usual communication about Giannis's availability, what other teams may or may not offer, uh, kind of balling up to one and exploding into this fantasy land and the craziness of trade proposals, which have just been completely unhinged and just it's migraine inducing, basically. It's migraine inducing.
Yeah, I just know what since 2018, Shams has been basically rumoring Giannis out of Milwaukee nonstop and
Nonstop.
nonstop since 2018. And he signed extensions after extension. And now he obviously, for good reasons, is frustrated. But I don't honestly think he wants to leave. I think he's smart enough to understand that if he truly wants to win another championship, it may be best to go someplace else. And I think he truly believes for the Bucks to truly get back to playing championship football, they may need to move on from him to get the assets that they are likely going to get for him if they truly stick to their guns on what they're looking for.
And see, I don't even know if that's totally accurate because the whole thing is Giannis wants to compete for championships, but this season especially, they are in no
No.
shape to do so. He does not want to waste a year losing. Well,
Nope.
too bad it's here. If you're 19 to 29, you're more than likely not going to make the pit unless you get on some crazy hot streak and he comes back and he leads that or whatever, what have you. It's fantasy booking here. You would have to get on the hottest of hot streaks to even make it to the pit at this point. So
That
the
Boston
whole
years
thing,
back,
I mean,
4 years.
like, so
Yeah.
the thing is, everybody was worried about selling him on the gap year. The gap year is here, whether you wanted it or not. So now that it's here, and now that you're living through it, it is now up to Bucks front office to put a plan together to make sure that it is not another gap year. I feel that if he wants to win the championship, no matter what team he goes to, they're going to be gutted, absolutely gutted. So you're going to leave a situation in which you feel like, okay, you're losing, and you can't see the forest amongst the trees, to another situation which has absolutely gutted their roster for you. And you are likely probably going to be headed into the same situation that you're in Milwaukee this season, as opposed to standing pat, doing things the hard way, as he said before, especially when it was on the road to winning a championship and eventually winning a championship. We did it the right way, we did it the hard way. You're going to have to stick it out. I still feel that his best opportunity to win will be here. Obviously, there's changes that need to be made. I'm pretty sure we'll get to that in a minute, but there's changes that need to be made, and you won't have to gut a roster. You can absolutely add to it. They'll have the draft capital to do so. His best chance to win another title is here if the Milwaukee Bucks do the proper work.
Before we jump to what that proper work looks like, hypothetical situation, they do trade him. Is there a package that you've seen rumored at all that even raise your eyebrows? Because none of the packages really have made me even go, that would be interesting. Is there anything that really piques your interest at all that anybody's been rumoring to Milwaukee?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You had the trade package from Golden State. Oh, they're going to put Jimmy Butler in there. Why? Why would you want an injured 36, 37-year-old Jimmy Butler? No, that's not going to work. Miami. Oh, we're going to throw in Tyler Hero. Why? Like you're trying to get Giannis without putting Bam in the package. That's not going to work. So New York has nothing Milwaukee would want, and that's the funny thing because they called about his availability in the summer, and again, they have nothing Milwaukee would want. So a lot of these unhinged trade packages really made me laugh. Like because they're you would literally have to gut your current team and mortgage some of the future in order to get Giannis. You saw what Memphis got for Desmond Bain and now Jaren Jackson Jr. It was a total of what, 7, 8 picks amongst the two of them. And you think you're, I mean, come on, like you think you're going to get Giannis for a couple picks and a bag of chips? It's not going to work.
What do you think it would have to take for the Bucks to move on to Giannis? You don't have to name specific players, but what specifically you think the Bucks are looking for if they were to move him?
Young stars, and a hell of a lot of picks. Because if you're going to move on from the franchise, from the guy who puts butts in seats, from the guy who really is the reason why Pfizer was built, you're going to have young stars that you can absolutely have a core and build around, and you're going to have draft capital for them to be able to not just build through the draft, but possibly go and get another star. So you're going to have to gut a good portion of your team and your team's future in order to even get Giannis. And I don't think any franchise is really ready to do that.
No, I don't think so either. And I keep hearing the comment too: the Bucks have to do right by Giannis. Do they, if they were to trade Giannis, like, do they really need to send him someplace he wants to go? My opinion is send him to the team that gives you the best offer, regardless of who it is. But again, like we hear, is like, oh, you got to do right by Giannis and send him where he wants to go.
Giannis has done right by them. The Bucks have done right by them, and both parties are smart enough to know that if that is the road forward, you have to do what's best for the franchise. You signed the contract. You are under contractual obligation. We have the right to send you where we need to send you. That's going to be right for us. Now, if you want to go and leave the next year, that is your right. You will be a free agent. You can do whatever you want to do, go to whatever team that you want to do. But this is business. People have to get the emotion out of the business. And I think both parties have done that. Uh, I think a lot of these fantasy bookers out there who are coming up with these unhinged trade packages don't understand understand that part. You have to do what's best for the franchise. That's the bottom line. When you're under contract, you're contractually obligated. The franchise can do what they need to do to make themselves better. It's just business.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Is you got to do what's best for the team. If trading him is what's best for the team, you got to get the best package you can possibly get to try to help you moving forward. Now, talking about trying to move forward with Giannis, I look at it this way. I want to get your thoughts here. And I know Milwaukee's not LA, but I know you're, like me, remember when it was Kobe Bryant that was rumored to be wanting to be traded out of LA, and they were able to make it work, and they were able to win, what, 2 more titles with Kobe? I see a path happening the same way with Milwaukee if they do it correctly, if they make the right moves. I don't know how much I truly trust John Horst when it comes to drafting, but if they do it correct, there is a path with a potential lottery pick this year to get back to competing for titles. That's just my thought. Maybe it's just me thinking more with my heart than my brain, but there is a path.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a path, and I agree with you. John Horst has had a lot more misses than hits in the draft. That's really curtailed the sustainability and the growth and the competitiveness of this franchise. Another thing is their player development has been next to nil. That's another big issue that they have not solved, and that goes back to when Mike Budenholzer was head coach. You're not playing the young guys, not developing the young guys, not really. It's the reason why the Warriors were able to win another title. They had the player development there. They were playing the young guys. They were developing the young guys, and they came in, they stepped up, they played big minutes, got them another title. There is absolutely a path forward here, and I think so many people are caught up with the drama of Giannis wants out, Giannis wants to trade, even though none of that has ever been said. They're so caught up with the drama. They love the drama of it that they are not really thinking with their brains. They're just thinking with that cesspool part, that most of people on X typically, with when they put on their little Twitter fingers there. It's not smart. So there is absolutely a path forward. I agree with you, but again, the work that would need to be done would have to be flawless. It would have to be perfect.
What are some of the things you think they need to do in order to move forward? Is it trade that potential lottery pick this year along with your 2030 and 2031, or maybe it's 31, 32 picks to bring in more proven talent, or is it use that lottery pick, draft a young, controllable, potential outstanding player? Because I've heard this is a really good draft this season. What do you think's the better path for the Bucks moving forward?
Yeah, the draft is really good this year. It's really good this year. And again, you're in that gap year. So you're going to be picking lottery. You got to stand pat. You have to stand pat. I think you draft and you draft well. eh, I don't know what star would be available with you using your draft capital that would really make an impact. And again, it's especially with the current coaching administration, that's a whole different story. But it's a really good draft. You pair a really good young player who can become dominant right alongside Giannis, who is still very much in his prime years, but we don't have that much time left with him as an NBA player, completely in total, no matter what team he may be on. So just draft very well. Again, with Horst, it definitely makes you kind of clench up a little bit, like, ugh. But that is the best path forward in my eyes. You use that draft capital to actually get somebody on here that can make an impact, get some coaching around them that will actually make a difference both offensively and defensively, and go forward.
There's no chance Doc is back next year, right?
Uh, so remember when Jimmy Haslam decided to go and buy those shares? And I said it the day that he did that this was the losing comes along with that, and rash decisions come along with that. Look where we are now. As long as Jimmy Haslam has a say in anything, there is always a chance that Doc comes back. I am of the firm believer that, and again, I don't always advocate for people to sit here and lose their jobs, but when you are not doing your job and yielding the results, when you keep coming in and saying the same thing every press conference that we have to get it right, we have to get it right, we have to do better. If you keep giving that message and the players are not receiving said message, it means that they're tuning you out. So that means you have to go. So I never felt Doc was the right coach for this team to begin with. He has to go, but as long as Haslam is there, there's always a chance he comes back.
Yeah, I had made the comment when Haslam bought into the team that if we're literally just getting his pocketbook and he's not making any decisions whatsoever, I'm okay with it because he don't care about spending money. Look at what he gave to Deshaun Watson. But it's looking like with the hiring of Doc and whatnot, it's looking like he is having some of that control, and that is also concerning to me as well.
Yeah. As soon as he bought those shares, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, people go look at the Browns. Go look at the Browns. Like, like losing follows this guy. Bad decisions follow this guy, both financially and with how you treat other human beings. So it was not a good thing, and that was always my concern with him was that it was going to end up being a train wreck that spilled down onto the court, and you were going to be mired in this sort of mediocrity yet again, the same sort of mediocrity you and I grew up with, with Bucks basketball, chase the eight. Like we just you go from winning championships to chase the eight. You don't want that, but that's the kind of attitude that Jimmy has, in my eyes, and looking at his track record, brings to the table. It's very concerning.
Yeah, I heard something yesterday listening to Sports Talk that was very concerning to me. Show on ESPN Milwaukee had a host from ESPN Cleveland on to get his thoughts on what Haslam just said because who knows Jimmy Haslam better than somebody who works in Cleveland. And he says the speculation around Cleveland that he's eventually going to get even more shares of the Bucks. And if I could, because I was driving, I couldn't, would have done this as soon as I heard that. That was concerning to me.
It's very concerning because the last thing he needs is more shares and more power and more ability to wreck this franchise. And people might think we're being hyperbolic. We're not. You have to go back and look at this guy's track record. It is not good. It is absolutely not good. You just can't allow someone like that to make decisions like this that really. again spill onto the court and wreck the franchise in that sort of sense. And it's really starting to leak down there.
Realistically, to me, I think the Bucks will likely have anywhere between probably 5 to 10 range in the lottery. That's where I think they'll end up. Obviously, they can be lower than that, and hopefully not. I don't probably haven't quite had the chance to look into it too much, but is there a particular player that has your eye that you're like, if the Bucks have a top 5 pick and he falls to 5, I wouldn't mind that matchup with him and Giannis.
And it's a little bit too early. It's
Yeah,
a little bit too early, just because you had there's some electric freshman Dibanza over in BYU, but I don't think he's going to slip down to 5. And the way he's been playing, he's probably going to be top 3. So it's really way too early. Some of these guys are still developing, still growing in the college game, and we don't exactly know where the Bucks are going to fall on that. So
yeah.
I'm
It's
keeping
not
my
that
eye on college, but it's still a little bit too early to say, okay, yeah, they would definitely fit kind
yeah,
of what the Bucks want to do. And plus, we don't know who the coach is going to be.
yeah. Is anyone currently on staff that if Dak were to either retire or move to a front office role or get fired, anybody currently on staff that you would trust getting that head coaching job? I know Darvin Ham's on staff and he was coach with the Lakers. Obviously, it didn't end well, but what are your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
Yeah, and everybody has a feeling about Darvin Ham, and I thought Darvin Ham did a really good job out in LA. I mean, he got up to the Western Conference Finals in his first season. I mean, just a couple plays here and there, they would have been back in the NBA Finals. So I think he did a fine job. Um, is he somebody that's going to absolutely move the needle? I'm not so sure. Um, anybody on that staff currently? I don't know. I mean, Dave Yeager at one point in time, but the way his kind of style doesn't really kind of fit this NBA in the current version. The success he had in Memphis and what he was able to do out in Sacramento when he was their coach, but now it's kind of different. The game's kind of played really way different now. I think one name to kind of look at and just keep in the back of your mind, he's not on the staff, Michael Malone. Michael Malone. The whole reason why that whole thing in Denver went down was because he and the GM were beefing, they didn't get along, and then that just kind of shattered. So I think that's one name to kind of keep an eye on. But anybody on the staff that really moves the needle for me, not really.
What do you think Malone would bring? We know the success Denver had with him. They won a championship. Is it his ability to develop guys? Is it his offense? What he does offensively, defensively. What is it with Malone that you think would be a good draw to Milwaukee?
Yeah, you hit it. I mean, it's the development of players, which is big because you need that, especially if this is the gap year for the Bucks, and you're going to go and you're going to actually use your draft capital to draft players, and you really have to really get that right. And you're going to have to play these guys. You have to be able to develop them, and you have some young guys on this team right now, especially with Ryan Rollins, who should be most improved player, but we'll see how that goes. He needs guidance. These guys need a firm rotation that makes sense, not this senseless Doc rotation type of thing. What he does defensively and the fact that he has experience with a big man who is quite versatile and knows how to get everybody involved and play on both ends. So that for me is one reason why I would say keep an eye on Michael Malone and what he decides to do, because I think he would be a really good fit, especially getting the Bucks back to playing championship caliber defense, which is really what hurt this team. Was when they dropped off defensively, all hell broke loose.
Yeah, and that started with Adrian Griffin. Like the offensive under Griffin was electric, but they couldn't stop nobody, and it just hasn't gotten any better from there. And I know they hired a guy from Cleveland, I think it was, to kind of be that defensive czar, and that's not working either.
It's not at all, especially when you have kind of antiquated ideas from the top of that coaching staff trickling down. It's just not working.
Final NBA related question before we jump on to some, Packer news and Packer conversation, and season unfortunately ends disappointingly again. NBA trade deadline so far. We've seen James Harden moved. We've seen Anthony Davis moved. We've seen Johnson moved. Any move just completely shock you? Or like what are your thoughts overall on the deadline?
Honestly, the AD move, the hard move, those were really big shockers to me. I kind of figured that Triple J would get moved. I mean, we knew that Memphis was ready for the rebuild. John Morant is eventually going to be gone. We know this already.
Want him in
Teams
Milwaukee?
are for me, it ends up being the same as a Dame situation, especially with the current coaching staff. If you don't have new voices and new ideas on the court to be able to make that work, I just don't see that happening. I think eventually he might end. I mean, he may very well end up in Minnesota or Miami. We'll see. Still a lot of time left for that deadline at 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Um, but you need fresh ideas from the head coach to be able to make something like that work. So definitely Triple J was one that I saw coming, but did not see Harden getting moved. Did not see AD getting moved at all. Those are definitely shockers for me.
And Cleveland in general, they move on from Garland for Harden. They they let go. Are they just because I know they're a second apron team? Are they just trying to cut payroll right now, get under that second apron, get even possibly under the first apron to give them some flexibility this offseason?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think their tax bill went from, I think it was like 165 million to 65 million with the moves that they've made. So yeah, they were definitely trying to shed money, still be competitive. I mean, they're still in the playoff race in the upper echelons of the Eastern Conference. I think this was less about trying to get over the hump and more so about trying to get underneath that apron.
And I lied. This is my last basketball question. If you had to pick one team from the East today, one team from the West today to get to the NBA Finals, who are you picking right now?
Ooh. The West, I mean, I still like OKC. I mean, I know they're really banged up right now. They're really beat up. Shea's going to be out till after the All-Star break. They just made a trade for Jared McCain from the Sixers to kind of, you know, kind of hold the fort with that, even though it's kind of hard to, cover for an MVP. But yeah, OKC is still it for me in the West until somebody proves otherwise. Maybe San Antonio because they kind of have their number this season. So, and I think they're going to head up again. So we'll see how that turns out. But watch out for San Antonio. But it's still OKC for me until somebody beats them. And then in the East, man, it's truly a toss up. I mean, Boston is still up there. Who nobody saw them still being up there without Jason Tatum. The Knicks are still up there. I think they will have a lot more gas left in the tank without Tom Thibodeau being there because he has a bad habit of kind of running his teams into the ground. And when they get to the playoffs, they've got nothing left. We saw with all his Bulls teams, we saw with this Knicks team, but now under Mike Brown, we'll see what they can do there. But yeah, that's the Pistons. They're good. They're really good, but they have to prove it. They have to prove it. So for me, it will. I think it would be the Knicks for me. But man, the East is a toss up.
Do you really trust Mike Brown getting the team to the finals, or I know he hasn't really
Yeah,
been a good playoff coach from his past stops. That's basically been one of the reasons teams decided to move on from him is lack of success in the playoffs. So I guess that would be the one concern I would have with the Knicks is Mike Brown able to get them over that hump?
I think they have the talent. If they don't tinker with the team too much, if guys continue to step up. I mean, I don't know what the heck is going on with Jordan Clarkson, but that's a different story. But if he can kind of keep them on the path that they are right now, dig it a little bit deeper on in the playoffs, I think he can do it. But like I said, that the East is such a toss up. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons did it. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland got on a hot streak, with Harden once they got things together and kind of, started running through it like that. So it's such a toss up in the East.
And now moving to NFL and Green Bay. I want to get your thoughts. Obviously, both Goot and LaFleur are coming back. Extensions were signed, sealed, delivered. Were you one of those that thought it was time to likely move on from LaFleur and possibly Goot, or are you glad that they're kind of sticking with them at that head of the table and allowing them to continue to work together?
I would say after that playoff loss to Chicago in the fashion in which they lost it, I started questioning things. I said, maybe it's time for him to go. Maybe it's I never said firmly like, yeah, he's got to go. I said maybe it's time for him to go. Maybe it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Maybe it's just not going to work. Maybe it's just not going to be able to get him over the hump. But after the dust settled and you kind of, start thinking a little bit more clearly, like I feel he is the guy for the team. Offensively, they won that game. Offensively, they won that game. Uh, Defensively is where they faltered. Special teams is where they faltered. So, what is he going to do to bring fresh ideas to the table? He goes out and he gets a brand new defensive coordinator, not because he had a problem with his old one. His old one really got a head coaching job off of the job that he did with the Green Bay Packers and Jeff Hafley. He was fantastic, I thought. But he goes against Jonathan Gannon, and Jonathan Gannon is collecting every single defensive coordinator that he can find to put on his staff. And I think it's going to bring about fresh ideas there. They need health. I still like Matt LaFleur. I think he's a highly successful football coach. My worry with him is that in these big spots, they continue to make the same mistakes, him included. Will he be able to get over that hump? Will he be able to do something differently that gets them over that hump? And you have to believe that he's going to figure it out at some point. The brain trust is there. The front office feels he's going to come over that. You got to roll with it. I'm glad they're bringing everybody back. See what you have. Get a healthy ball club on that field. See what you can do. And if you get to a point after a couple of years into this extension that is like, okay, same things happen, same mistakes have happened, nothing fresh, nothing new, teams will figure you out, this, that, and the third, then you start making that change.
Yeah. When the season ended, I personally felt it was time to move on. I still feel that would have been the right decision, but I don't say that because a lot of people want to downgrade the job that he's done since he became the head coach of the Packers. And I look at it this way: there's two Matt LaFleur tenures in Green Bay. There's when he first got there, and he had to get Aaron Rodgers back to form because Rodgers looked like a guy who was on the decline when he first came in, and he got Rodgers back to being a two-time MVP. 2022 was just a complete disaster of a season with Rodgers injuries, the wide receiver room that Goody decided to leave pretty much bare of except for rookies, and then he had year one of Jordan Love. They make the playoffs. Year two, they go 11-5, and then this year they were beating Denver by double digits in the second half of that game, and Jordan Love was just torching that defense until basically Christian Watson and Micah Parsons went down. They were at 9 wins, and then they didn't win again that year. So you look at the job he's done, he's not a bad coach. I question if he's good enough to get there, and there's been times this year that made me question that, like Philadelphia, for example. But I do wish, though, he would, and there's still time to do it. I wish he would adjust his offensive staff a little bit. I don't think Stenavich is the right person to be the offensive coordinator. I know LaFleur is the play caller, but I think Stenavich, to me, comes across as kind of like a yes man. He's not going to challenge LaFleur. He's just going to do whatever LaFleur tells him to do. And I think Butkus ran its course at offensive line coach. The offensive line has regressed since Stenavich became the offensive coordinator. That's just my thoughts.
No, I agree with you 100%, and that's what I mean by the fresh ideas. Where are the fresh ideas going to come from? How you tinkered your defensive staff. Okay, that's great. They're going to have fresh ideas. They're going to, I think Gannon is going to do a fantastic job. I think a lot of people are kind of like poo-pooing, kind of look at what he did with the Cardinals and like, but look at what the job that he did with Philadelphia. I think he was excellent in the job that he did there. But yeah, it comes down to what are you going to do offensively? The fresh ideas there. And are you going to get out of your own way in the most critical moments? You're playing way too conservatively. I am of the firm believer, and I've always said this, that when you play not to lose, you lose. And we've seen that far too many times with Matt LaFleur. He has to get out of his own way.
In Dallas, they tied, but yeah, basically a lot.
Half a loss, half a win. But when you play not to lose,
You're not
you
winning
lose.
typically.
Yeah, you're not winning. Yeah, you're not winning. That would be better. You're not winning. You could tie, but you're not winning. So it's getting out of his own way, getting fresh ideas, getting guys in there that will bring fresh ideas to him and challenge him. Not disrespect him as head coach, but challenge him like, hey, look, I've noticed this. Why don't we try this? It has to be a collaboration. I know LaFleur is a play caller, but if you're going to have an OC in title, it has to be a guy that you're able to bounce ideas off of and y'all can absolutely collaborate and have it put out there onto the field. And I don't feel they have that at this point.
No, and I thought that's where Nathaniel Hackett was perfect in Green Bay. His first go around when he was the OC, because he was very good at in-game adjustments. He was very good in the red zone, or the gold zone, as the Packers called it. And I think they haven't really been the same since he left. And now he's with Matt LaFleur's brother in Arizona as his OC, and we'll see what difference he can make. And, Nathaniel Hackett, for how bad of a play caller he was in New York and Jacksonville and how bad of a head coach he was, he's not a bad coach. It's just he's not a play caller. He's not a head coach. He is, if you're an offensive head coach and you call the play, he's a perfect coordinator to me, because he is one that would challenge you and give you fresh ideas and be like, well, have you ever thought this instead? Now, quarterback coach, I don't know who they're going to bring in. Luke Getsy is a safe option, but I would be okay with Getsy, but I would hope they would go a different route there to bring in, as you said, fresh ideas.
Because it's absolutely necessary. I mean, you can do one thing on one side of the ball, but you can't sit here and look at the game tape and feel that, oh, we were absolutely flawless in every single situation offensively. Like there has to be fresh ideas out there, and I think LaFleur might be a little bit too stubborn to make any changes at this point.
Yeah, and changes can still come, and we'll see if they do. Jordan Love. My opinion on Jordan Love is this: I feel he's good enough to win the Packers a Super Bowl. I think he's hurt by Matt LaFleur not putting the offense through him. Too often last year and this year, it's about, we got to get Josh Jacobs going. Well, Josh Jacobs isn't getting anywhere, and your running game gets better when you tend to set up the pass first. And not shockingly, Jordan Love can show that he can sling it around the field. He did it against Detroit. He did it against Chicago in the first half. In the playoff game, there's a number of games where they let him sling it around the field. Denver in the first half. But to me, one of the Fleur's stubbornnesses is that we need to develop the run first and build everything off of there. I think he just needs to let Jordan Love be Jordan Love.
Yeah, and for years I've been trying to point at the tape and say, look, he's trying to emulate what Shanahan, the Niners, is doing.
But he's got
Shanahan
a better quarterback
runs,
than Brock Purdy.
yeah. So I mean, he's trying to emulate what he did there with, okay, we're going to run the football, but we're going to have a quarterback back there that can absolutely win us games, and we're going to put him in position to do so. And you notice the Niners' run game really struggled this year. I mean, really struggled this year. I mean, we the numbers that they were putting up running the football, we're not accustomed to seeing from the 49ers. They are just automatic, just like his dad. You put anybody back there, it'd be a 1,000-yard rusher, right? So you saw this season, Packers run game really struggled. Now, part of it was due to the fact that Josh Jacobs was not completely healthy until close to the end of the season. But when you're very predictable, we're going to run on first. We're going to run on second. Then we're going to pass. And teams know this. Yeah, you're going to struggle because teams know what's coming and they're going to be prepared for it, and they're going to be prepared to stop it. So,
If the Packers
yes,
have to do this, they can, for those not watching.
can.
Well, they're running the ball. 99% of the time they ran the ball when they canned other.
Yeah, and other teams know this. Like everybody gets the footage. They know this. They saw the tendency. So it's like, oh, this is going to be easy. This is easy work. What they could not account for more times than not this season was Jordan Love really being able to sling the rock and sling it deep, sling it accurately, and be the difference maker on that field. So why people are really doubting Jordan Love at this point, I don't know. I agree with you. He's really kind of held back by Matt LaFleur, not trusting him enough to put that football in his hands and lead this team. He has to get out of his own way.
you look at the roster construction as is, are they a Super Bowl contender, or is there more work that needs to be done, personnel wise?
Man, you know what? Like, it's hard to say that they're not because when you had a healthy Micah Parsons and he was on that field, and you saw the difference that he made for everybody on that defense, not just the pass rushers, but everybody. Everybody was claiming there's a Super Bowl contender. Jordan Love could go out there. He can sling the rock. He's got Christian Watson. He's got Reed. He's got all the receivers. Golden. He had Tucker Craft. I mean, we got all the recipes that you need offensively, and then defensively. Again, the way Parsons was playing when that defense was healthy, everyone was saying they are a Super Bowl contender. So it's kind of hard to say no. But when you look at how the cornerback play a little bit, I think that needs a little bit more depth to it. And I think Goot said the same thing in his press conference today that they're not looking to overhaul, but they do need some depth in the position. Nate Hobbs, um, some tinkering, yes. Maybe some offensive line help as well. But it's hard to say that it's really hard to say that they're not. But at the same time, it's like they do need a couple of pieces.
Funny you brought up Goot, his press conference today. All I see on social media is anger at Goot for basically saying what he said. Anger nonstop. Uh, he's talking about special teams have gotten better, which he's not wrong to an extent. The coverage team has improved quite a bit.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you decided you didn't want a returner this year at all, and your penalties on return still is a huge problem. But my thing is what did you expect him to say at a press conference in February? He said exactly what I expected him to say. He said
Yeah.
exactly what I figured was going to be said. He's not going to throw Keyshawn Nixon under the bus. He's not going to criticize the special teams coordinator and throw him under the bus. He gave the answers I expected him to give. 2 years ago, he was talking about how Aaron Jones was the heart and soul of the team. And a month later, he signs Josh Jacobs. And here we thought we're going to have Jacobs and Jones in the backfield together. An hour later, he gets rid of Aaron Jones. Like, Goody doesn't say anything of any substance at all at these press conferences. He acts. He goes out and does it rather than just talking in front of a microphone what he wants to do or thinking about doing or where the team is. Nobody thought the Packers are going to get Micah Parsons when they did. All of a sudden, Micah Parsons is the Green Bay Packer. Now, we did hear the rumbling the day or two before and everything, but at the end of the day, Goody is like a silent assassin. He's just going to go and do it. Nobody thought Jacobs and McKinney were going to be a Packers. Not the signings didn't work out, but nobody thought Banks and Hobbs are going to come to Green Bay. He just does it. And to expect him to say anything different than what he said, I think you're asking too much.
I think people forget that he went to the school of Ted Thompson School of GMing. If people forget how Ted Thompson conducted business, and he's doing it his own way, but it's still very much Ted Thompson like. So yeah, what are you expecting him to say at a press conference in February? I mean, he's going to be very PC. He's always very PC, and then he goes into his office and he does the dirty work that needs to be done to put a competitive team on the field.
Yeah. And I do question him as a general manager because he has swung and missed in draft picks, not as much recently, but he has. And I think that's where he needs to improve on. But I think he has gotten better there. I just don't know if he's good enough to put a roster together that's truly going to be a true Super Bowl contender without holes to it. Hasn't yet. Safety position uh, right before he signed McKinney and drafted Bullard and Williams. The corner, I'm guessing he's going to bring in a double or triple dip in the draft at corner. Always seems like he's a year too late when it comes to addressing concerns at certain positions. I guess that's really my biggest issue with him. He's always a year behind, and yep, this is an issue. Let's go fix it. Where Ted Thompson was like, we got 3 wide receivers coming up for contracts in the next 2 years, let's draft 3 receivers this year so they're ready when these guys leave.
Yeah, and that's why I said he went to the Ted Thompson School of GMing, but he definitely does things his own way, but still very Ted Thompson like. So it's he has not missed as much as you mentioned, and I agree with that 100%. But I think every Super Bowl team has some sort of
Yeah.
hole, and they're able to kind of overcome that. So it's you're not gonna feel the perfect team. I mean, it's not gonna happen unless you're the '96 Green Bay Packers, where you were number one offense, number one defense, number one special teams. I mean, that was
Even
as
the
close to perfect as you're gonna
even
get.
the 2011 Packers or 2010, sorry, 2010 Packers, that team was pretty flawless at times too.
Pretty stout themselves. So you could get close to perfect, but you're never gonna get perfect. But it's like, can you get good enough? Can you get good enough? And I felt, again, with health roster that they had this past season, I think was definitely good enough to make a run at it. But once the health started to wane, that's when you really saw the holes, and that's when to your point, that's when you saw the holes, and that's when the wheels fell off.
Yeah, really the only issues I had today with what he said. Really the only issue. There's one thing that kind of made me go, raise my eyebrows a little bit and say, did he just say that? That was when he commented that he felt that the team had all the pieces it needed to compete for a championship. To me, I'm not saying he's necessarily putting the coaching staff and the players, throwing them under the bus or not, but that can definitely be interpreted that way. And then I get you have to defend your guy, especially if you may look to trade your guy this offseason, and Rashawn Gary. But to say that 7.5 sacks and 60 pressures is a great season in the NFL, I didn't really agree with that. And what I commented, I got to find my quote tweet here because I want to make sure I get it correctly. But my comment to it was, it is a great season in the NFL at 7.5 sacks if you're Ingambare or Brenton Cox. For what they pay Rashawn Gary, 7.5 sacks and 60 pressures, and you didn't have a sack over the last 10 games of the year, that's not a great season to me. Those are really the only two things that really either piqued my interest a little bit or kind of frustrated me.
That's where the PC part of him comes in, because yeah, you want to kind of protect the I don't want to say the investment, but you want to protect the trade value of a guy that you are fully thinking of jettisoning off the team, because when you cannot, I repeat, you cannot go 10 weeks when your position, when your job is strictly to get after the quarterback. You cannot go sackless for 10 weeks consecutively. Okay, that means one after the other, consecutively, 10 weeks without a sack. Doesn't matter if Michael Parsons went down or whatever. You didn't have Michael Parsons last season, and you still put together a pretty good season. For production compared to the pay, let's take pay out of it. Just the production, when that is just your job, and you've been in this league long enough to know some of the tricks to get after the quarterback. Be smarter than you actually are on that field. 7.5, 60 pressures, not good enough.
No.
It's simply not good enough. And that's not being that's not the Packer fan coming out in me. That's really analytically looking at it. That is not good enough. And he knows it. He knows it. And Goot knows it, but he's protecting trade value. So somebody else can pick him up. Maybe he gets to a better situation. Maybe he needs a fresh start. Maybe he needs a different scheme. But it's simply not good enough.
Yeah, and like I said, those are only really two things he said that really stood out to me, and I get why he made that comment about Gary, but he could have stopped short of saying that's pretty good production in the NFL. He could have stopped short of saying that. He could have stopped short of that and stated that he thought Rashawn Gary had a pretty solid year this year. Obviously, the way the season ended, we would have liked to see it differently with him, which he did kind of hint on How he did note it was not a strong finish for him though, which was great. But to say that his numbers was a pretty good production in the NFL for a player of his caliber, kind of stretching a little bit. And I think that's why there's a number of people that aren't big Gutekunst fans, is because he states nonsense like that, thinking, it sounds good, so I'm going to say it anyways. He didn't have to say that's pretty good production. Could have just said that, hey, the finish of the year could have been better, but he's an important piece of this football team, and he's a valuable player on this team, and kind of left it at that.
But again, you have to think Goot doesn't say anything without a reason. If he were to go in and just absolutely trash this guy, oh, he just simply wasn't good enough. Okay, then every GM in the NFL is going to hear that, and they're not going to want to do any sort of business in a trade for him. So he's definitely trying to pump him up and keep him up there, and again, protect the trade value of him. Oh, it's great production in NFL. That's pretty good. 60 pressures. Wow. 7.5 sacks. Wow. For a guy who's been over double digits and is getting paid to be an over double digit sack
He's
guy,
actually never been
to show up.
he's never gotten 10 or more sacks. The most he's gotten is 9.5.
I mean, it's maddening. It's what it is. So he's trying to protect that value so we can jettison that guy off of there and maybe put somebody else there, maybe be able to keep some guys, maybe find another guy in the draft. Who knows what his plan is? But he's definitely being smart with his words and trying to protect that trade
Yeah.
value.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just wish he wouldn't have gone, like, there's this here, and he could have kept it here, but he just kind of stretched it this way more than he should have. That's just my thought there. But
It's a
I
little
think
bit.
corner, defensive line, offensive line are the three big areas they have to address. And unfortunately, there's just going to be a lot of tough decisions to make with a Rashawn Gary and an Elton Jenkins and Aaron Banks and a Nate Hobbs and a McManus and Josh Jacobs, and probably a lot of restructuring contracts with Jacobs and McKinney and some of those guys to get some room to make those moves.
Yeah, which is wild because Josh Jacobs basically got the contract that they wanted to give to Aaron Jones, as far as value per year. So it's really really crazy when you think about the whole reason why Aaron Jones is no longer on the team. Well, they were trying to give him down to that 12 million type range, which is exactly where Josh Jacobs is right now. So it's now, oh, well, now we need to get further below that. It's wild.
Yeah, and Josh Jacobs and McKinney's contracts, even though they were for 4 years, I feel were meant to be actually 2-year contracts, knowing that they would have to restructure,
Structure.
extend, or in Josh Jacobs' case, which I hope they don't, might ultimately end up releasing, because I I could see that happening. But the problem is you don't really have anybody ready to take that lead bell cow back, and you're going to have to spend free agent money or draft capital on that position. Because Marshawn Lloyd, if he would have done what we thought he could coming out of college, you could get rid of, or not, you could release Jacobs and be fine with it. But I forget Lloyd's even on the team sometimes.
Yeah, everybody's like, "Oh man, this is the week. This is the week. This is the week. He's coming back this way," and it just doesn't happen. You feel for the kid because he's a tremendous talent. Guys is absolutely fantastic, but that's when he's healthy. And unfortunately, the best ability of any athlete is availability. He just hasn't had it. Hope they don't release Jacobs. I think that would be foolish of them to do, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, appreciate you coming on. It's nice chopping up with you again. Definitely got to make it not so long in between when we do. Definitely want to get you on as we get closer to the end of the NBA season, closer to the end of college basketball, to talk about some options for the Bucks if the potential lottery pick, and then also with the NFL draft coming up. Even though the Packers don't have a first round pick, they do have some draft picks, and kind of get your thoughts on areas where they could address that. But that'll be in the future. But again, I appreciate you coming on.
As always, man, always good to chop it up with you. Thank you for having me on. I mean, let's make it to the trade deadline tomorrow and
Yeah.
then see see where we are then.
I would ask you to make a prediction if you feel Giannis gets traded or not. But the fact that we basically whatever we predict, if the opposite happens, well, now no, he's not being traded, or he is being traded, and the opposite happens. Like, well, now I look like an idiot.
I will say this though, the thing that has been relayed to me over and over again, even in my conversations just yesterday, was the commitment between both the franchise and Giannis, the commitment that they have to each other, and that's the thing that keeps being relayed to me. So, does that equal him being here? At 2 p.m. Central Time? We shall see.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, and look forward to checking out the next episodes you have coming out of Tosh Sports. You can find that anywhere you get your podcast, and appreciate you coming on. The podcast version of this will be dropping first thing tomorrow morning. Video you can find Facebook, YouTube, X as well. Again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with you all next week to talk post NBA trade deadline and more. And I'm going to be starting a series, first video dropping Monday on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok exclusively. Kind of going to go position by position and give my thoughts and grades and needs going into the 2026 season. So have a good rest of your night, and we will talk soon.